Imagine you walk into the world's biggest candy store. Thousands of jars, gummy bears, chocolate, sour worms, those weird banana things nobody likes. And someone tells you, pick the one candy that's going to be the most popular 5 years from now, bet your allowance on it, choose wrong, and you lose. That's stressful, right? That's picking individual stocks. You're standing there sweating, trying to predict the future, terrified of choosing the banana thing. Now imagine a different option. Someone hands you a giant scoop and says, forget picking. Just take a little bit of every candy in the store. One scoop, everything's in there. You don't have to guess. You don't have to be a genius. If gummy bears blow up in popularity, you win. If chocolate takes over, you also win, because you own a little of all of it. That is an index fund, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand it better than most adults who've been investing for years. No jargon, no finance bro nonsense, just the candy scoop. I'm Max. I have no face, no job, and a genuinely concerning amount of opinions about scoops. If you've ever heard just buy index funds and nodded along while having absolutely no idea what that meant, this is the video for you. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let's make this stupidly simple. Quick refresher, because we build on it. A stock is a tiny piece of ownership in a company. Buy a share of a pizza company, you own a slice of that business. If it does well, your slice gets more valuable. We covered this in the stock terms video, so if this is new, go watch that one first and come back. I'll wait. I won't actually wait. I'm a drawing, but you get the idea. Here's the problem with buying individual stocks. To do it well, you have to pick winners. You have to look at thousands of companies and somehow know which ones will thrive and which will flop. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Even the professionals, people in suits with fancy degrees and giant computers, are shockingly bad at this. Most of them, over the long run, fail to beat the simple average of the whole market. People whose entire job is picking winners mostly can't, reliably. So what chance does a regular person picking stocks on their phone during a lunch break really have? Be honest, not great, and that's not an insult. It's just really, really hard to predict the future. Think about it. To win at stock picking, you have to be right twice. Right about what to buy and right about when to sell. Get either one wrong and the whole bet falls apart. So the smartest move isn't to play the guessing game better. It's to stop playing the guessing game entirely. So instead of betting everything on one company and praying, an index fund does something beautifully lazy. It buys a tiny piece of a whole bunch of companies all at once in one purchase. The word index just means a list. Somebody made a list of companies, and the fund's only job is to own everything on that list. The most famous list is called the S&P 500. It's basically the 500 biggest companies in America, the household names, the huge ones. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you are, in a single click, buying a tiny sliver of all 500 of those companies at the same time. Think about what that means. You're not betting on one company anymore. You're betting on the entire idea that big American businesses as a group will keep growing over time. And historically, they have. Not every year, some years are ugly, but over the long stretch, the whole pack tends to climb. And here's a quietly brilliant bonus. The list takes care of itself. If a company on it shrinks and falls out of the top 500, it gets dropped, and a stronger growing company takes its place. You don't have to manage that. The scoop automatically swaps the stale candy for fresh candy without you lifting a finger. The losers fall away. The winners roll in, all on autopilot. Here's the candy store magic again. You don't have to know which company wins. If one company in your fund becomes the next giant, you own a piece of it automatically. You didn't have to spot it early. You didn't have to be smart. You just had to own the whole store. Let me hit you with the part that genuinely surprises people. The boring scoop usually beats the exciting guessing game. Not sometimes, usually over the long run. Why? A few reasons, and they're simple. First, diversification, which is just a fancy word for don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you bet everything on one company and it crashes, you're wiped out. But if you own 500 companies and one crashes, hey, it's a scratch, not a wound. The other 499 hold you up. Your money is spread so wide that no single disaster can sink you. One candy going stale doesn't ruin the whole scoop. Second, you stop outsmarting yourself. Most people lose money not because they're dumb, but because they panic. They buy when everyone's excited and prices are high, then panic sell when everyone's scared and prices are low. Buy high, sell low. The exact opposite of the plan. An index fund quietly sidesteps all of that drama. You just hold the whole market and let it do its slow climb. Boring is the strategy. Boring is the superpower. Third, and this one's sneaky, fees. When you pay a fancy fund manager to pick stocks for you, they take a cut every year, whether they do well or not. Those fees sound tiny. Oh, it's just 1%. But over decades, 1% a year can quietly eat a huge chunk of your money. Let me make that real. On a big nest egg held for 30 years, that tiny 1% can quietly swallow tens of thousands of dollars. Money that went to the manager instead of you, often for results no better than the simple scoop. Index funds barely need a human because they're just following a list, so their fees are often a fraction of that, and tiny fees mean more of your money stays yours, compounding and growing year after year. Boring and cheap, the dream. Okay, this is the part that turns neat idea into, wait, this is actually powerful. It's called compounding, and it's the real reason index funds work so well over time. Here's compounding for a 5-year-old. Imagine you have one magic rabbit. After a year, that rabbit makes another rabbit. Now you have 2. Next year, both rabbits make babies. Now you have 4, then 8, then 16. The rabbits aren't just multiplying. The babies are having babies. It starts slow and looks boring for a while. And then suddenly, there are rabbits everywhere. Money in an index fund does the exact same thing. Your money earns a little growth. Then that growth also starts earning growth. Then that earns more. For the first few years, it feels painfully slow, like nothing's happening. And this is exactly where most people quit. They get bored and bail right before the magic, because the explosion happens later. The person who just sits there boringly for 20 or 30 years ends up with a mountain. Not because they were clever, because they were patient and they let the rabbits do their thing. Here's the habit that ties it all together, and it has a fancy name that I'm going to make unfancy: dollar cost averaging. Sounds like a spreadsheet sneezed. It actually just means put in the same small amount on a regular schedule, no matter what the market's doing. Same amount every month, automatically. That's it. You don't try to time it. You don't wait for the perfect moment, because nobody, not even the pros, knows when that is. And here's the quietly genius part. When the market is high, your fixed amount buys a little less. When the market drops and everyone's panicking, that same fixed amount buys more. You're scooping up candy on sale while everyone else is running away. Over time, this smooths out the bumps and means you never have to agonize over, is now a good time? The schedule decides for you. Best of all, you automate it and forget it. Set it to pull a little from your account every payday, straight into the scoop. No willpower, no checking, no stress. The boring machine just runs in the background while you live your life. Remember from earlier videos, willpower is a terrible employee, but automation never calls in sick. Quick story, because this is the part people don't believe. You might remember Maya from earlier videos. After she built her emergency fund and got ahead of her bills, she did something almost aggressively boring. She didn't pick stocks. She didn't watch the news. She didn't check her account every day having tiny heart attacks. She just put a small amount of money into a plain S&P 500 index fund every single month. Payday, automatic, no thinking, and then she went and lived her life. Some months the market went up and she felt great. Some months it dropped and her account looked sad, and her instinct screamed, sell, do something. And she did the hardest thing in investing, nothing. She just kept buying her little scoop every month and ignored the noise. Years later, all those boring little scoops had quietly snowballed into something that genuinely surprised her. And the wild part, the part she told me that stuck, she'd spent less time thinking about investing than her friends who were frantically trading and stressing, and ended up with more. She didn't win by being smart. She won by being patient and refusing to panic. The tortoise with a candy scoop. I'm not going to pretend this is magic with zero downsides, because Max doesn't do hype. So here's the honest fine print. The market goes down sometimes. Index funds don't protect you from drops. When the whole market falls, your fund falls too. The difference is recovery. A single company can go to zero and never come back. But the entire market going to zero and staying there? That's basically the end of the economy, and if that happens, you've got bigger problems than your fund. Historically, the market has always eventually recovered and gone on to new highs. Eventually is the key word, which is why this is a long-term game. not a get-rich-by-Friday thing. It's slow. This is genuinely boring. There's no rush, no thrill, no winning lottery ticket. If you want excitement, go ride a roller coaster. If you want to quietly build wealth over decades, the boring scoop is your friend. And you do give up control. Remember the SpaceX video? When you buy the whole list, you own everything on it, including companies you might not personally love. That's the trade for not having to think. For most people, it's a trade worth making. So let's bring the whole candy store together. Picking individual stocks is standing in front of thousands of jars, sweating, trying to predict the future, and usually getting it wrong. An index fund is one big scoop of the whole store. Instant diversification, tiny fees, no guessing that you buy a little of every month on autopilot and hold patiently while compounding turns it into a snowball. Boring on purpose. Boring that wins. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to watch the news. You don't need to pick the next big thing. You just need to own a little of everything. Keep adding to it and have the patience to leave it alone. So here's your move today. You don't have to invest a cent yet. Just learn one thing. Go look up what an S&P 500 index fund is. Just read about it for 5 minutes. See the list of companies you'd own with one click. Get familiar with the idea of the scoop. Then come back and comment "scoop" so I know you did it. Yes, really, just comment the word "scoop." It'll be our little inside thing. And if this finally made index funds click, if the candy store made more sense than every boring article you've ever skimmed, subscribe, because next time we're tackling exactly how to buy your first one, step by step, no sweating required. Because here's the truth nobody tells beginners. You were never supposed to be a genius stock picker. The smartest move was always the simplest one. Grab the scoop, be patient, let the rabbits multiply, and one day you'll look up and realize the boring thing quietly made you rich.